Hey y'all, welcome to Prepper Friday. I'm Madden from Self-Reliance Publishing, and today we're going to continue our series on how to live off the land in the city. We're going to be talking about using fish and other forms of aquatic life as a food source should the need occur. And we're going to go fishing at a mill pond right down the road from my house. I'm going to be using my pocket fishing kit that I have here and some worms that I conveniently dug up in my worm bin here in the house. So let's go ahead and get fishing. Okay, so when you're looking for places to fish in your city, I recommend that you get on Google Maps and draw a circle that's 1.5 mile radius around your house. This mill pond here is right at 1.5 miles downstream from my house, and I think that's a good starting point as far as a radius goes to do some scouting. And I say this for a couple of reasons. One, if you ever need to utilize these food sources that I'm talking about in this series as serious means of putting food on your table, chances are transportation is going to be non-existent. Transportation is going to be your feet taking you there. So 1.5 miles one way would be 3 mile round trip, and that's a reasonable distance to walk. And on top of that, if you're interested in survival and prepping and whatnot, you should take your health serious. And walking is a great way to stay healthy and get in shape. So if you make a point of walking 3 miles 3 or 4 times a week here and now, that will get you in shape, that will keep you healthy, and it's a good way of scouting out different sources of food while you're at it. So you're not just walking, you are identifying edible plants, looking for nut trees, fruit trees, looking for signs of wildlife, finding places to fish, etc., etc. So that's where my 1.5 mile sort of rule of thumb comes into play. So that being said, you find a place to fish. You see me here fishing with my pocket fishing kit, and I'm doing that more for demonstration purposes. You don't see me catching anything in this video, and I'm not going to tell you that my battery died and I caught a couple of big fish right after the battery died. Not going to give you a fish story. I didn't have a whole lot of time to fish today. I did it mainly as a means of illustration for this video, but that's a good thing to keep in mind too. If you are ever in a situation where you need to utilize these food sources as a serious means of subsistence for you and your family, chances are your hands are going to be full, and you probably aren't going to have a whole lot of time to actively fish. I have the same feeling about active fishing as I do about hunting. You've heard me say in my other videos not to plan to actively hunt as a means of putting food on the table. It's not the most efficient way of putting meat on the table, and the same goes for fishing. I love hunting and I love fishing, but that's sort of a sport and a hobby for me, and I have the luxury of going home and eating whether I get something or not. So I can do it here and today. But if I'm ever relying on food source, trapping for mammals is way more efficient than hunting, and trapping fish is also way more effective and efficient than active fishing. Now, there's a couple different methods for passive fishing. You've got fish traps, which I might do a video on. I can't go into too deep detail of that because it's not legal here in North Carolina. But there's other options as well that are legal. You've got bank lines, you've got trot lines, yo-yo reels, and there's other alternatives as well. And I will make videos on those at some point in time. But when you're making your plans, you need to consider those passive fishing options just because it's going to be more realistic and more efficient at as far as calories expended towards calories on the plate. So that being said, fish aren't necessarily the only type of life that you're going to find in and around the water. Water is necessary for all forms of life, and so it attracts wildlife. So you're going to have amphibians in and around the creeks, streams, rivers, ponds, and whatnot that you're fishing. And when you're going to check your trot line or your bank lines or what have you, it might be a good idea to carry along a gig. Frogs are relatively easy to gig, and that could be a way of putting a little meal on the table without going too far out of your way to do so. Also good to carry other forms of primitive weapons to take mammals that you run across for the same reason. Okay, to sum it up, you should identify sources of water that are potential places to fish within a mile and a half of your house. And you should regularly walk to these places and identify other food sources along the way. You should research different passive fishing techniques and practice these passive fishing techniques and plan to utilize those instead of active fishing should you need to put fish on the table. Well, I hope you found that video useful. If you did, please check out my other videos here on YouTube and my websites, madman.com and self-reliancepublishing.com. As always, I appreciate every like, every comment, and every subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.